Hey, Daniel, would you give me a picture that is a little bit Mormon? More Mormon. Make it more. Make it more Mormon. Little bit more. Just a teach more. Yeah, more. Welcome. It's the Extra Mo Show. I'm Travis. This is my esteemed colleague Glenn. We got producer Dan.
What's up, everybody?
Pete in.
You know, today we're feeling pretty good. Life's going good.
Yeah, good moods today.
I like your shirt.
I love this shirt. I love it.
Today, you know, we're going to let the spirit guide us. I know we have a few pieces of content that Glenn has prepared for us, but you know, one of the things that I really want to maybe bring up today is how we push through. I have a mentor. Do you mind if I share the story?
I don't mind anything.
Nothing. It's all on the table.
I don't even mind about anything right now.
So I have a friend, and he brought a concept to me that's pretty cool where, because sometimes I'll react. I don't know if you guys are like this, but, you know, I'll see something, a piece of news, or someone will be rude to me or whatever, cut me off, and I have a reaction that I'm not necessarily in control of. Maybe I'm quick to get over it, but he's introduced this new concept of take right action. And it's kind of vague, and I was kind of complaining about it, but the more I'm thinking about it, the better. So every time a decision opportunity comes, I have to be prepared and locked in to take right action.
Is this what you were talking about last week with the...
A little bit.
A little bit about... You know, yeah, okay, with your...
Yeah.
If you're fighting with your spouse or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so then I'm like, well, that just seems too hard, but I'm going to try it, because I really trust this guy. He's a pretty smart guy. And so I'm like, I'll just try it. And then we had the long weekend, and that can be a tough time with, you know, family. There's no one's going to school.
Right.
I mean, I have 7 kids. We additionally are probably now we found out that the biological mother of Jaylee and Abram had another child 2 years ago. And we just found that out. And so
It's a busy lady.
We've inquired. So we're probably going to now have our 8th child. I just found out. So that's a little bit of a mind tingler. And then we're going to clean our whole backyard. It's Memorial Day weekend, you know, and some things can happen. But I was able to stay locked in and take right action the whole weekend.
8th child. Man.
But anyway, it's just a concept I want to introduce to everybody. I really like it. I'd love to hear what people think about even the phrase.
So summarize
even
the take
phrase,
right action again. You're saying
even the phrase
a
is a little
stimulus
vague.
happens, you don't react. You
Deliberately
take the time to deliberately assess, and then right action is the only option. Not doing anything isn't an option.
No, it can't. Well, anything could be the right action, and it can depend on what you typically do. You're kind of breaking patterns and habits. The thing that I've been doing that I'm finding success with is I have to, in moments of quiet, instead of relaxing, I'm refocusing. I like to think of it like you're hanging from a rope. Maybe this is bad. I don't know. I really want to hear what people think about it. If I think like I've been hanging from a rope and, like, you know,
Not by your neck.
bats are flying at you, dragons are flying at you and trying to knock you off the rope, and you're hanging on. And then all of a sudden it gets quiet. Instead of like relaxing your grip, you readjust your grip. And now you're ready for when that's maybe not the best analogy, but the dragons start flying at you.
Yeah,
again.
maybe you like wrap the rope around your hand and like make sure your grip's solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting because I'm like, that's fatiguing, but I've been able to do it, and now it's getting a little bit easier. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So I don't have to be a slave to that initial reaction piece.
Boy, that's some serious mental discipline to be able to.
Well, it's only been a few, maybe a little over a week, so I'm not claiming victory yet. And perhaps there's some people out there smarter than me that'll be like, Travis, you can't do that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to keep trying until I fail then.
I don't think there's anyone smarter than you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang, dude.
No one.
I appreciate that.
But I do wonder, like, between a bat and a dragon, which one I would rather have coming at me. And
Is it a fruit bat or is it like a different type of
I'd
fruit
probably
bats? Are
rather a
cute.
dragon. I'm
no,
not.
those things creep me out. All the bats creep me out.
Have you seen the video of the bat guy who films the bats upside down, and it looks like a scene from Blade, where he goes into the nightclub? Because the bats are like, it's like they're standing up, like dancing, instead of hanging upside down and dangling. You gotta look it up. It's a killer.
That's hilarious. That's
I was
good to
like, maybe
look
I
up.
don't hate bats as much as I thought, but I don't know. It was just it's a cool
Yeah.
concept, and I think it relates to what we're talking about here, because a lot of what we're talking about here is like we have this course of action, and like let's say from early in my life, I had decided I want to reach this destination. For me, it's eternal life, right? So now there's going to be all these way stops along the way where I make a bad decision, I maybe talk about something inappropriate, or I look at something inappropriate, I get in an argument with someone, I judge someone, all the things, right? All the sins that you have. And so instead of like allowing all those detours to derail me, I'm going to instead always be deliberate and act in accordance with the action that is going to get me to where I want to go. Now, sometimes I could be confrontational. That could be the right action.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you're just going to, you be a doormat. You take the correct action for the time, and you be brave enough to do it no matter what. So if someone is mistreating you, you're, instead of like, one of my reactions is actually really toxic, can be to retreat. Say, I'm fine. Shut it down. I shut all my emotions down. Now I'm impervious, right? So I don't feel anything. But now there's a discontinuity. So my correct taking right action could be, I have to confront that now. I have to confront that person, but I have to do it appropriately. So what does that look like? And now I'm
Debatable.
Yeah.
Depends who you're talking to.
I mean, do I punch him with my right hand, or do I kick him with my left foot?
You go for the cheap shot first and then finish him off, or
Right in the
Or
crotch.
just a twofer. Just both.
yeah, dude, wham wham.
Wham.
I don't know. It's just an interesting concept. I've been recently introduced to it. I'm experimenting with it. It's kind of interesting because sometimes I have maybe ascribed myself or ascribed the principle of, well, that's not my fault because they did this thing, so obviously I would react this way.
That's human nature.
Yeah. So now I'm like,
But
well,
you're right.
I could be responsible for all my actions. They aren't always going to be
And
perfect.
Russell Ballard said once, anybody can say anything to the spirit without offending them. So in the spirit, so if you can do that in the spirit, then it means you should be able to get there without it even. Like that's because that's where you
Yes.
want to. You
That
want
is
to.
it.
You want to get there, right? Like to do it right.
Yep.
That's good, man.
Yeah. So that I was
Right action. I had a experience over the weekend. I talked to a guy who was interesting, a friend of mine. He had a client, and I mean, okay, I'm not saying any names, so I'm good. A friend of mine had a client that he didn't know very well, and he took him to a business lunch last week, you know, and he could tell the guy was a little off, right? So he says, how you doing, man? Is everything, how's it going? And this friend of mine is just he's like one of the best dudes you'll ever meet, just patient, you know. I watch him with his wife and with everything, and he's just like Job, you know, nicest guy ever. And people just talk to him because he's just a good-natured, nice guy that just people open up to. But what would you do here, right? They're talking to this guy who's obviously, he's got a BYU sweater and he's, you know, or shirt or something. He's LDS guy and everything. And he says, you know, he's just asking him how he's doing. And the guy, you got to understand, it's just a client. It's just a prospective. It's a previous client and he's trying to close this deal. And the guy just starts going, yeah, I'm just in a really bad place, man. And he just opens up about this 30-year addiction to pornography.
really.
He's just like crying. I've been a high counselor.
How long have you known this guy?
The friend of mine?
Yeah.
Oh, long time. Yeah. Like as long as you.
Really.
And he's so this guy starts opening up. I've been a high councilman several times, bishop, this, that. And the whole time he's just back and forth with this porn addiction. And it was heart-wrenching, dude. Like, you know, this guy just hates this addiction that he keeps going back to. And it was just really interesting. Like, at first I'm laughing about it because I can imagine the discomfort of a stranger just opening up. And this guy,
Yeah.
this is the first person he's ever opened. So the guy is just, floodgates are open, man. Like, I'm going to tell you everything. And my poor friend is sitting there like, oh my gosh, you know. and he just tells him about all this stuff. And anyway, it was just really interesting that this guy's perspective. And you and I had talked about doing a couple episodes on here about pornography.
I think it'd be huge
because I think it's like what the brethren of the church need to talk about. I think the wives need to be aware.
I have a close person, Bishop Rick, Elders Quorum president, et cetera, 5 kids, 25 years of marriage, and it's ended now because of pornography.
Well, here's my question though: do you think that's the right action?
Well, I'm not going to judge that.
Because who knows how far
there's
it's
a lot
gone.
of drama. There's been a lot of effort put into fixing it. I'm sorry to derail yours, yours, but there's been a lot of effort to put into it, and he keeps failing. And then pornography also does something I don't think people realize what it does to the way that husbands treat their wives and the way they view them, and then the shame will then also further shut them down, so that like looking at it as one level of it. But then their reaction to them, like this guy being weighed down like this, so he's unavailable emotionally.
Yeah, and this poor guy felt like he called himself a hypocrite, and he called himself a fraud.
Which he is, in a way.
Kind of, right? Like,
I mean, technically.
Because here's what Satan tells these guys. And
he's not worthless.
And I know couples that have gotten divorced over this, and I'm against that. Like you're saying, I'm just against that. Unless, like, I do have a friend whose wife,
but I don't judge. That's what I'm saying.
His wife kicked him out because his porn addiction turned into literally interacting on these some kind of. He told me about this.
Like a live thing or something.
Like they have a, I don't know what it's called, but you literally are on camera with this.
Yeah, I've heard. Isn't that
person and
OnlyFans or whatever? Is that what OnlyFans is?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I shouldn't even mention it because we shouldn't even advertise it. But
virtual girlfriends he was paying for, and then that addiction literally just led to him going and getting a prostitute. So it's like, okay, yeah, I understand that divorce, but these men that are struggling with this pornography addiction, it's like, no, there can be help. So anyway, what I was telling you guys is I ended up talking to this other friend of mine. Just 2 days later, and I told him the story because we both know my friend Dave, and I'm like, dude, Dave was telling me this craziest thing, and this guy opened up to him, and so this friend just goes, yeah, everything. Oh, okay, lighting. This friend just goes, yeah, I was addicted to pornography for 15 years, and I'm like, what? And he tell me, like, what do you mean? And he goes, yeah, from age 6.
What?
Like his friend or whatever house had it, and all grown up, and then his wife busted him a couple years into his marriage, and it was going to derail their marriage, and so he went to the LDS
addiction place or whatever,
addiction recovery, right? And
we should put that in our bio or something.
So how cool is it that this guy, though, such a taboo topic, knows he can help people? And I said, dude, would you be willing to go on a podcast? And I said, it's totally okay if you wouldn't want to, and talk about this experience. He goes, totally. Mm-hmm. So he every time he hears about someone struggling with it, he goes and helps them. And he had this powerful spiritual experience in addiction recovery. He really wanted to get over this addiction. It had controlled a lot of his life. And it just took him to dark places. He didn't feel good about himself. Pornography is just degrading to your soul, right? I mean, most of us have seen it. Most of us have looked at it. It's never something.
It is interesting to me. It's such a great example of how Satan uses something beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Which is intimacy and making children. It's literally the purpose of life. I mean, it's really the purpose of life, even if you're an atheist, really, is to continue life. Right. It's like the pinnacle of being a human. And then there's this counterfeit that utilizes the same drives and energies to be something that can destroy. It's really interesting into his tactics and how smart. I was gonna say wise. That's probably not, but he's very smart at doing that.
Oh, sure is. This guy, he was explaining to me his experience in this 12-step is like he really was sincere, and like he just had this powerful experience where, like, all of a sudden the spirit overcame him, and he just knew he was over it.
So guess who talks about that? Guess who talks about that? So the 12-step program, I don't remember the guy's name and stuff, but the origin of the 12-step program is because the guy who created Alcoholics Anonymous, that's where the 12 steps comes from. He knew a guy apparently that was addicted to alcohol, and he went to like Switzerland or something and talked to Carl Jung, the psychologist. Like he's like Sigmund Freud, yeah. Carl Jung. Carl Jung's like very famous, very into psychology. He's like the father of modern psychology.
Yeah.
And he says you have to have, I think he even called it, I don't know that he necessarily believed in God per se, but you have to have a life-altering spiritual experience. And so that was one of the origins of the 12-step, because the 12-step program,
it's totally about God, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's like you have to have a higher power. You have to admit that you're nothing, and you have to submit to the higher power, and you have to apologize, and you have to forgive. Which, if you start thinking about this, a lot of these concepts to beat this addiction are built into religions.
Sure.
And not even just our religion. I mean, our religion has that, but religions, like even non-Christian religions, like these become principles that...
Well, the principal philosophies of all mankind are from religion.
Yeah.
Like all of the... You know, it's so funny if you read Marcus Aurelius. You're like, oh, these are just the scriptures, the way he's...
Right.
These are just, you know, philosophical truths like that were taught for thousands of years.
Like a lot of times people...
And the origin was religion.
Yeah.
Right?
And I guess you could argue, and so we'd have some people arguing that people thought of it and the religion stole it, but I think that doesn't even beyond the point. There's truth.
Yeah, there's truth. There's eternal truth.
There's eternal truth, right? And I think that a lot of the religions of the world are good in that they help remind people of some of those truths. And I guess the difference in ours is we just believe we have the fullness of the gospel, right? The keys and authority to act in it. So it's like, it isn't us versus them. There's truth and there's fiction.
Yeah.
And
you go all the way back to Adam and Eve. And in our faith, we believe that he was taught by, you know, angels. And about the gospel and its plainness. And those basic principles were taught to his children. So, I mean, those have been passed on from the heavens, you know. Yeah. And it's so funny to see like atheists be like, so what you do is, you know, you look to a higher purpose. And you're like, well, yeah, you're absolutely right.
I mean, I've always struggled with hearing like, oh, you guys, you need to have a God to act moral. And it's like they're at a higher level because they don't have a God, but they act moral, they say.
Which is like, and again, how do you even define morality? Like I said, one of my favorite books is As a Man Thinketh. And it's just these profound doctrinal truths about our nature. You know, and so anyway, it was an interesting thing this weekend. I'm like, we need to do an episode about it because he's willing to come on, and I got nothing but respect for someone that's willing to just put themselves out there over that. And so,
well,
anyway,
you know,
that happened this weekend.
It's sparking some thoughts about like pornography. Like I remember when I was young, there was this. I lived in Oregon, in the Dalles, Oregon, and our yard was like here, and then there's a road, like a dirt road, because it was like I was in the city, but it was like back in those days, like small towns, it was like you're kind of rural even in the city limits. It's like, so we had like a dirt road, and then there's this empty field with this old barn in it, and there was this metal shed that I can still see, this like green and white metal shed. Do you remember those? Like they're like tough sheds, but they're made of metal. They kind of have like the sliding doors, and they make
you just dent them.
Yeah, you can just dent them. They're made out of aluminum.
Yeah.
If I was from Britain, but I remember I lived in the house for a couple of years, and then I made friends with this guy that lived down the street, and he's like, "Dude, you got to come check this out." And I'm like, "Okay, let's go check it out." And I'm like 8, maybe.
Great.
And I'm like, "Let's go check it out." And so we go in, and in this shed, I'm not joking, it is floor to ceiling Playboy magazines.
Oh, light stuff. Unless you're 8.
Yeah,
it was pretty wild. I don't particularly remember like any images, but I can remember being on my mission and remembering images. Like I'm old enough now, but I can remember being on my mission.
Think of how traumatic that is when you're the first time you see that stuff.
It was pretty rad.
The first pornographic image I ever saw.
I didn't know why, but
I know. I remember it. Yeah. I know exactly what it was. I know exactly what it is and what it was, and it made me like. I wasn't even like a great kid or anything, but it made me like almost ill. This is so...
I can't remember
because it wasn't just pictures. It was like... It wasn't...
actions.
No, I mean, it wasn't just a picture of a woman. It was like a picture of her in the act. And I was just like, oh, gosh. Like, I just felt filthy. And it was.
Yeah.
And that's why the first time you're exposed to it, You know, it's filthy. And then it's so sad that a person, especially a priesthood holder, right, or someone with the gospel, can look at that and it's not filthy anymore. It's just they're just addicted and they love it and they need it, and it's like so. Anyway, we're gonna discuss it.
I wanted my second point of that is, so that was my experience, and I'm an 8 or whatever, and it's just like that's pretty like specific geographic location I have to go to access pornography.
Yeah.
Well, now it is everywhere, and we have these things in our hands, and and it's like my kids are faced with such more. So how much more? No one prepped me for it. They were like, "Don't go in any sheds. There could be Playboy magazines there." You know, but I think that so far I've been fairly lucky with my boys. But I guess my point is you have to talk to them about it really young.
Yeah.
And 8 is you need to somehow figure out a way to talk to them when they're 8.
Yeah, because their friend's brother has it on their computer or whatever.
And it's like you're not protecting them by ignoring it. So that'd be my thought about that. And then I guess the second thought I've had sometimes about that green shed is that those models were like what? They were pretty hot. So what is that? 20 years old. So that was 42 years ago. So like minimum, they're like 62-year-old women now.
They're grandmas, dude.
They're probably dead.
Well, some of them are probably still gorgeous.
70, like what's that? Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren. Yeah.
I just thought of that sometimes. Me and my son Thor like to watch old westerns too, and then we watched some movie from like 1955, and I'm like, every person in this movie is dead.
Yeah,
because they're like they're in their 30s or 40s in 1955,
and they're up there going like, "Man, I really probably shouldn't have done that photo shoot for $37 back in 19." Right? Yeah. You hear these? You hear these?
Even at 8 though, I read it for the articles.
Yeah. I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
Good articles.
Good articles about like sports and current events.
We'll get into that. So we'll have maybe 1 or 2 porn episodes. Like that sounds bad. Episodes about the struggle with pornography.
There you go. That's better.
Yeah, we don't want to. Extra Motion is not going to do porn episodes. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Those would not be very popular either. I don't think.
I don't know. There's an audience for everything.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So let's get into some topics.
Yeah, let's do it. I want to get into some. I've been kind of like studying some of the nitty gritty stuff. I'm really interested.
Nitty gritty.
There's this cool thing that shows like all this stuff, like the maps that have like Hebrew. They found like in different locations in the what's currently United States. They found apparently like 10 Commandments and like some Hebrew writings and stuff. And I'm just like,
it's getting good.
That's pretty wild. I mean, the Joseph Smith is a good guesser thing just keeps popping into my head. I'm like, all right.
What
he
a
was
great
a good guesser. I mean, he's like, why would there be Hebrew writings?
There's so much.
Because there was this family, this guy named Lehi.
Yeah.
Came across the ocean.
I'm telling you guys, I've told you my theory that eventually it's just all going to be proven.
Yeah.
But the point is no one's going to care.
And they won't care. Yeah.
It's like and the way I know that is because there's such a preponderance of evidence
right now
that people are like, nah, I don't need to see it. I mean, what's it going to take, right? Hey, we found these ruins underground and they had a welcome mat that says, "Welcome to Lehi." And we found the back of a horse-drawn, vehicle that had stick figures that said Nephi, Laman, Lemuel, and and we found that, and it was like, so doesn't mean anything, and it's just like Well,
an analogy I would give is that I remember growing up, I saw a UFO, also when I was 8 years old, so big year for me.
Porn and UFOs.
Yeah. Porn and aliens?
Yeah, porn and aliens. But back then, you would tell people, and everyone was like, that's stupid. You're dumb. The boomers and older generations were like, that's completely ridiculous. Well, now our government's like, yeah, we have hundreds of videos of UFOs. And guess what everyone did? Oh.
Right?
Who cares?
Who cares?
I know.
And so I think there's evidence that you're right, that when, and I really do mean it, when it's like proven,
it will be.
People will just be like, who cares?
Believe it.
That's why they tell us to have faith and not to have knowledge.
Guys, and not only will the church be proven, but you got to understand, the Lord will return.
Yep.
And half of them still will be like,
That's
nah,
a good point too.
No, that's not it. That's not
They'll
him.
actually fight. They'll actually form an army. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, we'll see this stuff. I found this interesting, this topic,
Okay.
because it's big in the Exmo community. There's a lot about mental health and the danger of LDS on mental health. And they throw out these statistics. And I just want to talk about them for a few minutes. And then there's some scriptures we want to talk about. So how we doing?
83% of statistics are
You're
true.
good.
Okay, yeah, we're good. So, first off, I genuinely feel bad for former members who, they see the church's overwhelming positive benefits for members, but want to rationalize their leaving it. Like, I genuinely feel bad for
Like
them.
I would do similar things. Like it has to be bad. I'm not bad.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I believe some critics cling to a couple of myths and misinterpretations, and then they look at it and say, okay, this applies to me, and I'm not safe there. If you remember, I talked a little bit about last week about how it's like, man, is this safe for my family? Literally entered my mind, after what was going on with some church leaders and things like that. But it says, critics commonly cite two statistics as a means to paint the church in a negative light. The first is that Utah ranks higher on average per capita in the usage of antidepressants. You guys heard that?
Yeah.
In the most recent data
I've heard that a lot actually.
Yeah,
for years.
They talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
In the most recent data from 2019, Utah was 16th in the country.
Okay.
The second statistic is Utah's higher than average suicide rate. More recently, in 2021, it was 14th in the country. Using the statistics in the state of Utah on antidepressant usage and higher than average suicide rates, critics then make a major leap to their conclusion that the church and its teachings lead its members to be depressed. And
that seems like a big leap to me.
Part of it's
I'm depressed, but I'm going to go to church every Sunday.
That guy who was addicted to pornography and opened up to my friend, who's in leadership callings and everything, probably a really good man struggling with a very bad addiction, right?
Well, we had a friend that we talked about earlier
Sure.
today that had the same thing.
Right? So are we to say that it's dangerous for him to feel like pornography is bad because it makes him depressed? So is the proper teaching then, you should just look at it. It's awesome. And then that's
what's the worldview. Like
that's
it's like
the worldview.
It's
right?
awesome to look at.
So it is silly to me that they're like, this high demand religion, these commandments is what makes people depressed, instead of sin makes you depressed, like failing makes you depressed. Well, that you can work through that, right? But the point is, he brings up statistics again. This is apologetic stuff that we talk a little bit about every week. Just even if it's the whole episode or if it's just 10, 15 minutes, we're always going to talk about some of these things that the Exmo movement uses against the church, right? I empathize with anyone who's lost a loved one due to mental health challenges or currently supporting a loved one, in mental health crisis. I feel bad for that. But suppose the premise suggested by critics was universally true. Okay, here's the question that I want to ask. Here's the question he wants to ask. Why does Utah County, with the highest percentage of Latter-day Saint population in Utah, rank the lowest in antidepressant usage in Utah? Okay? Why does Idaho, with its large Latter-day Saint population, rank below average on antidepressant usage, right? So it's like...
I know why.
Pray tell.
Well, there's so many places to get good food in Utah County that they just they eat their feelings.
There's not.
Instead.
Utah County food sucks. No, there's a lot of Mavericks. There's a Maverick every block.
I meant,
Yeah.
Like Mavericks, cookie places, hamburger joints,
And soda places.
What is it?
and soda places. So
What is it with the cookie
answer.
places now? Here's a 60-pound cookie
Yeah.
with 24 layers of frosting.
My wife is a health nut. I mean, you saw her. She's like trim.
She's ripped. Yeah.
She works out all the time. She won't let anyone enjoy their food at our house. And I say that jokingly, but it's kind of true.
So when you guys go jogging, do you just drive?
When we go jogging, I'm more of a visualize. I'm like that. And then she actually, yeah.
You're like, you're doing good, honey.
Yeah.
You're doing good.
Keep it up. Well, I'm going for like a king of queens scenario, you know?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point is that I sometimes wonder about that. There's so many places to eat here. When we go visit a place like Oregon, I don't know when you go, Vegas is a little different. It's like an entertainment city, but like,
Such
if you guys
good
ever
food.
notice, you go somewhere else, it's like they just don't have the quantity of places that Utah has for food and ice cream and treats and things like that.
But I
Yes.
always felt like that's because Utah is a very high entrepreneurial state. A lot of business owners and a
Could
lot
be.
of people starting their own things.
Anyway, it's a little bit of a distraction, but
A little bit.
so I apologize.
I love
No,
food.
no. In a 2016 Journal for the Scientific Study of Religion, 1.3 million people in the United States were surveyed, and members of the church reported a high number of positive emotional experiences and relatively high life satisfaction. So, why does the evidence consistently show that Latter-day Saints are happy,
The
well-adjusted, and
Utah
fulfilled?
County one I'd never heard. That's a great argument.
Very
back.
interesting, right? Like it's like so.
Oh, I hate
so
Happy
you're
Valley.
you're seeing a correlation, and therefore
Valley.
making
Thank you.
an assumption, and yeah, it's called a Happy Valley, right? They're making an
But don't you
assumption.
hear the people saying I hate Happy Valley all the time?
Oh,
It
all
just
the
feels like
time.
the dumbest thing. It's called Happy Valley, and it's happy for a reason. There's kids on the corner selling Kool-Aid all over the place.
I love Utah County, but I don't. Like I
agree-
love Utah County. I will say this:
I kind of agree,
the
but I also
best
disagree.
people I've ever met in my life, and there's a lot of them.
Uh-huh.
I met living in Orem, Provo, right? But gosh, the culture drives me crazy sometimes.
That's why you got to go on the west side of the lake, and things
West
get
side?
way better.
I don't know, man. We bought this old house in my neighborhood now. I'm like, dude, I'm like in the city of Enoch or something. Like we've found heaven, dude. Like
People say the culture's bad, but I get what they're saying, and maybe we can argue about it a little bit. But I'm going to take the other side because I'm like, all right, someone's like this person in our house. He's younger than me, had to get his leg amputated
wait, a person in your house?
in my ward.
Oh, in your ward.
In my
like,
ward.
I'm like, one of
You
your
don't have
children.
other people living in our house.
Like, you guys just rent out rooms?
we just let
You're like,
everyone.
we got all
come.
this extra room with these 7 kids,
Yeah,
so we
we
just
only
rent rooms
have
out to
7
hobos.
kids.
One of them lost his leg.
Each room can hold like 15 people, guys.
Sure, how many bunk beds can you put in there?
But no. In my
Easy.
ward, he loses his leg. We don't really know him because that's one thing I don't like is we do kind of insulate ourselves because we have church, we have calling, so we don't socialize really great.
Yeah.
That's one thing I do agree. But my counterpoint is we went over there and got all the young men, got these 2 studs, Hunter and I just forget the other guy's name. They are total construction guys. They do it all week long. What did they do on a Sunday? In their freaking shirts and ties, went over and hand built a handicap deck or a ramp for
Yeah,
him.
you mentioned this.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? F you guys.
Yeah.
This is a great place to live.
Yeah, it is.
That does not happen in Columbus, Ohio.
Right.
It doesn't happen. I'm sorry. It doesn't happen in Portland. It doesn't
This study
happen.
talks about all that.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
wards and people doing stuff
And there's
for
good
each
and
other.
bad from it, but
Yeah.
overall, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's like this comedian that I went and listened to once in Salt Lake, and he was talking about how he lives in Utah County, and he was pretty funny. He goes,
There's some funny parts.
"Do you know how awesome it is to
Let's do it.
not be Mormon and live in Utah County?" He goes, "I haven't even mowed my lawn. I've never had to shovel my walks.
Yeah.
They think they're going to get to me, and I'm like, yeah." I heard that casserole you guys make's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's always at my house every Sunday, a whole tray of it.
I was thinking about reading the Book of Mormon the other day.
Yeah, I was thinking about it,
I don't know.
but I need these weeds pulled.
But I have an operation coming up here soon. I might need some.
We
some
would do
nails.
it. We would do it.
Oh yeah, without even
Mormons
we
are
totally
suckers.
would do it.
Without
Mormons are
batting an
suckers.
eye.
Then the study gets into like, okay, Utah, especially Utah County versus other high elevation states. High elevation
It's tough.
is big into depression and stuff,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like it's not the church. Basically, all the other studies basically prove it's not being more LDS that makes you depressed. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Like the way to get over the depression of high elevation, according to all these polls and everything.
Serve others is like the
BLDS.
like non-religious people are like, you want to get over your depression, think about others.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sort of.
Peter's
the
talks about
ones that had the least depression, here's weird stats: owned a gun, obeyed the word of wisdom.
My guns make me
They,
happy.
they didn't drink and stuff. They had the happiest people had the largest families.
Ah, dude.
So right,
No
There
wonder
you
I'm
go,
so
T-Money.
ecstatic all the time.
Heck yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
I thought it was frustration and anger, but that must be happiness.
Utah was ranked 7th highest out of 56 states and territories in terms of the number of mental health facilities. Wyoming, with 917 mental health facilities, was ranked number 1. California, with a population almost 13 times greater, is ranked 53rd with only 79 facilities. So they throw that
out of what?
And then you start reading why. It's because the state with the largest amount of people from out of state that come to their facilities is Utah.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone in these facilities is from other states.
They're from California.
Yeah, they're from other states, and they come here.
Oh, that's funny.
Because we have the best treatment centers
Yeah.
and the best help. So it's like the Exmos will throw out these stats. Number 1 in mental health facilities.
They're number 1 in serving people from other states with their mental
none
health.
of the people are from Utah. So I thought that was interesting. It gets into the LGBTQ stuff, which I think is very interesting.
I would like to hear about that, actually.
Yeah, it's isn't it irresponsible for critics to universally claim that the Church of Jesus Christ is bad for mental health? Why make that claim when the opposite, according to all these polls and everything, is much more likely? LGBTQ plus and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In 2019, the Utah Department of Health surveyed 86,000 Utah teens. In the group of LGBTQ, identifying Latter-day Saint teens, an alarming 28% reported having seriously considered suicide in the last year. Latter-day Saint heterosexual teens had seriously considered suicide at a lower 13% rate. Again, what's the assumption that they make then?
They're being bullied.
Yeah, the church is bad for people that are LGBTQ. Well, the critics capitalize on this and suicide ideation and attempt to explain the gap with false accusations like the church's anti-LGBTQ policies are causing harm to our LGBTQ youth, which is so weird to me. So the church that, because they believe in the law of chastity, these kids are killing themselves, right? None of this makes sense to me.
That's a good point. It isn't.
It's not even a church.
I
right?
do think some negative things can happen. So it's not.
Well, sure.
But
Catholics are anti-LGBTQ?
Yeah.
The new pope's talking about no.
Well, here's
Chastity's important.
This is an interesting statistic. It's funny because I actually pulled this up before you mentioned that, but this is ChatGPT that I pulled this up on. Okay, suicide rates for LGBTQ individuals. Okay, and pre and post operation. Okay,
So you're talking trans.
Yeah. So
Cool. We'll get canceled now.
yeah, that's why I wasn't going to say it.
No, transmissions.
Yeah.
Oh,
Auto-
TransUnion credit score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10-speed Ford transmissions.
So
Those are depressing.
Yeah, the TransUnion credit score. Pre-surgery, suicide rate. Okay, not thinking about it, like suicide rate, 44%.
No way.
Yeah, and
That
this is from
sad.
this is from latest studies. Okay, and post-surgery, so which would be, I guess, affirming their belief, right, and leading into, or I guess supporting their identity, I guess. The post-surgery, 42%.
That's awful.
Yeah, so almost 50% of those individuals will end up taking their own life. Almost.
Well, that goes right in with these statistics that I'm reading, right? That both statements about the LGBTQ, suicide ideation due to being LDS, that they're way off. So, going along with exactly what you said at the 50%, the Dyer and Goodman poll point out in the same 2019 data set that 49% of Utah's non-religious LGBTQ teens had seriously considered committing suicide, compared to 22% of non-religious heterosexual teens. The national... Sorry?
Wait. So both of them are lower for LDS.
Well,
Is that what you said?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but the they're saying
Yeah.
that it's so much more dangerous for LGBTQ than this within the LDS. But what they're not telling you is Utah LGBTQ teens had suicide ideation at 28% versus 13% of Utah heterosexual teens. Non-religious Utah LGBTQ teens, 49%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Non-religious Utah heterosexual teens, 22%.
So it literally helps.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and lowers their suicide
But they
rate.
come out and say, look how dangerous it is for LGBTQ. So, these well-meaning like Neon Trees guy and all these people are like, we got to help this problem is a problem, and they leave the church because of this, not realizing, no, the church is why 20% more of them are not committing suicide.
Yeah.
The church is helping them, right? The question we should be asking is, what is the church doing in Utah to significantly reduce the amount of suicidal ideation among LGBTQ identifying teens?
Yeah.
That's the question that should be asked, not, it's not safe.
That's such a huge point, Glenn. I don't want to just skip over this. I mean,
No, dude, it's crazy.
We're getting raked over the coals for this type of thing. Even to the point where I started to think, oh, you know, am I showing that? Because I love people. I do.
Yeah.
You may disagree with me. I still love you, and you're more valuable than a pet. You know, I see that on social media all the time. They're like, kill the people, not, you know, and they're like someone's mean to a dog, and they're like, kill that person. And I'm like,
and you're like, hold on, that person would never just crap on my sidewalk. But that dog would.
But my point is, I like human beings. I think human beings are awesome. And,
I do too when they're not driving.
And I love them. And so it's like, but I've been kind of almost fed that lie enough where I'm like believing it. But I love hearing that, because I do look at like the support that my wife is in young women's, which gets a bad rap. All the Expos talk about young women's as this like hellhole. My wife is working her ass off to think, what do these girls need? How can I help them?
Oh, yeah, dude.
How can I support them? And my wife, even to the point where like, you guys don't want to freaking have an activity? Let's just go out. We'll go shopping.
Yeah, get some ice cream.
We'll get some.
Anne's and the young women too. They're at our house all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great support these kids have.
Yeah, and so it really bugs me to hear. And I do think there's been people. Obviously, there's been people that have done bad things. There's like I've also seen there's, you know, I get the, have you been sexually abused? But you know what? F those people. If they're members of the church and they sexually abuse a child,
Yeah, send them to
F
prison,
them.
dude. Yeah.
send them
to prison.
Send them to hell. I don't care about them. I don't like that human.
No, and then whether they're in a leadership position or not.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they should be put in jail or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm not going to.
You just have to. I'm trying to bring up these claims about the church is so bad for your mental health. There's literally zero to
Evidence.
back that up. There's zero to back that up.
Well,
I know that the most depressed I have ever been in my life is in my faith crisis about the church and when I was inactive.
Yeah.
You know, there was a while.
Amen.
There was a while, right? There was
Amen.
a while after my mission where I didn't necessarily doubt the church, but I didn't give a crap. And the best basketball was at Liberty Park
Oh, on Sunday.
And I was one of the white guys they'd let go play there.
They'd give you cool nicknames like White Chocolate.
No, mine was Marley.
What?
Some brother there named me Marley. Dan Marley. Miami
Dan
Heat.
Marley. That
Yeah.
makes sense. He's white.
So he's like,
For those
yo,
who don't know,
Marley.
one of the Thunder Dan, one of the greatest basketball
I
players
was
in
my
Phoenix.
nickname at Liberty Park, dude.
Actually, that makes sense, dude.
So, yeah.
A little thicker than maybe you should be, but could shoot the rock.
That's all I did.
Yeah.
So we're like, and so anyway, I'm going inactive because I'm not going to church. There's ball Sunday morning. You know, you're single, dude. I didn't live at home. I didn't really have any family support at all. I just lived in the avenues with my buddies, and it was real easy to go inactive. Real easy to go inactive. So it's like, there's good ball on Sunday, whatever. So, dude, there's like a year or so where I just played ball Sunday, and, dude, I got suicidal.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even, you know, there was no LGBTQ about it or anything. I mean, there was maybe some morality
Maybe a
issues
little.
with some dating.
A little G.
There was some of the ladies, you know, like I will say I was married a virgin, but yeah, I you know, I made some mistakes there with the girls, and so, you know, there you are, adopting the philosophies of men, making out with a new girl every day and playing ball on Sunday instead of going to church. Yeah, I was suicidal for a while there.
Yeah.
It wasn't while I was active in church. It's never been, right? So these statistics, I don't just believe crap that's fed to me because it corresponds with what I'm trying to teach. I'm telling you, I experienced it, man. The church is what saved me from those demons, saved me from that depression.
And it saves others. I see it.
Sure.
Well, the phrase that I always like, it's from the scriptures. Dan, maybe you can look. I'm not a scripturian, but wickedness never
You're
was.
not a scripturian?
Scripturian.
Are you an academic?
I'm a scripturian.
Are you an academic?
Yes. Maybe you've heard of me.
Sorry.
But wickedness
We are
never was
so
happiness.
academic on this show.
I love that scripture.
Which one?
wickedness never was happiness.
Oh,
or maybe
amen.
what is it?
It's
a
Alma
quote?
No, yeah, it's
4110.
Alma.
What is it,
Wickedness
Alma?
never was happiness. Yeah.
And I think it's one of the most pure.
Alma 4110.
The book of Mormon is true because of this one. Because what you're talking about is true. It's like, well, what sounds fun to me? Sleeping in on Sunday, going and playing basketball.
That is fun.
Well, when I could play basketball. Making out with tons of different chicks all the time. I mean, all these things that are
Sound fun.
It sounds fun, but yeah, if you've experienced them, if you've dove into those things, you soon feel this emptiness. Mine wasn't this awesome adventure of inactiveness, but before my mission, my parents moved like right before I graduated high school. And so I moved in with my best friend, Bill, who's a total stud, Catholic guy. Just one of those lives, but it was like a boring inactivity. We played poker all the time, and then we'd go up to the river and we'd go swimming at this place. Awesome. I mean, it was fun, right? I had fun, but like you said, pretty soon it's just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And I remember, so this actually, I'll tell the kind of the complete story. So then my friend Dave Gray, who now lives in Utah, he is going to go on his mission. So I somehow hear about it because we didn't have social media or anything back then. And he has this farewell. And I'm like, I'm not going to go on a mission. I got a girlfriend. She's, nice, whatever. And I go to his farewell, and this emptiness that I'd been feeling like, but you almost don't realize it. I go there, and all of a sudden it's like, whoosh.
I've been missing this.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what is going on? And I'm like, I feel the spirit. And I told my girlfriend at the time, I'm going on a mission. And she was actually really supportive, which hats off to her. She's did a great job being a supportive girlfriend. I actually baptized her and then went active, which was probably not the best example.
Dude.
Yeah.
No, man. Hey, there's
Whatever.
Scriptarian.
Scriptitariation.
So go on a mission. And there was some things, some unresolved sins that I needed to repent of and blah, blah, blah on my mission. But I crushed my mission, came back, and have been using that experience of that emptiness as a cattle prod for my inherent laziness or whatever, to not go back there. Because I just remember feeling like, what am I doing? And I would just lay in bed thinking like, well, why even get up? I don't have to work. I had a swing shift job. I don't know if you've ever had one of those. It ruins your whole day.
Oh,
and you can't really do anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I told him with you, and it always struck me as that, wickedness never was happiness. And it's so true.
And it can be so fun.
And what's the best thing?
It can be so fun, and it just leaves
Glenn,
you empty.
I'm going to ask you, because I know you've done something. In the last 30 days, like when you think, what's the best I felt?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
30 days.
Maybe 60.
For sure. The best I've felt is probably the times I'm talking to my son on his mission on Wednesdays, right? Like hearing his mission stories and watching my son become this priesthood holding awesome man that I just look up to and admire, and it's just awesome.
It can even extend to other things, like we were working in our yard. Well, I hate working in the yard, is what I tell myself. That's the story I tell myself. But when we got done working in the yard, I'm like, that's pretty rad. Well, I have to go home ministering. And it's like getting out the door to go minister sucks. I'll just say it. When I get back,
it's awesome.
legit.
You're like, that's legit. And so there's this weird thing in our lives where this short-term gain of whether it's pornography or eating, which I struggle with as well, or all these short-term things, they end up leaving us feeling empty and vacant and shallow. But when we do things that are constructive, service-oriented, thinking of other people, then we feel better.
Well, all the motivational speakers of the world are just spewing doctrine.
Tony Robbins.
Yeah, dude, it's just...
If you take the F words out...
Yeah, it's like a Sunday talk.
He'd be a great Elders Corps president.
It's, you read like Think and Grow Rich, or you even think about...
Think and Grow Rich.
What's the one I love? How to Win Friends and Influence People.
What was Carnegie?
And then you got Napoleon Hill. What was that one? Napoleon, all those books we used to read.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, you read all those books, and it's like, they're
that's
just...
Kiyosaki.
And again...
Napoleon Hill is Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, and then you've got, like I said, my favorite is A Man Thinketh, and you're like, these are all great philosophers that are they're just telling you doctrine. They're just telling you what Christ taught you. Like, oh, if you're miserable, I mean, if you're LGBTQ and you stumble across this little podcast that we get 100 faithful listeners at a time,
100
a week or whatever.
That's called reach.
Yeah, if one of you,
Power.
I'm telling you right now, if you're depressed and your brain is lying to you, I know that every time we're depressed, it's because our brain is lying to us.
Yeah.
The adversary is just lying to you. The best example I have of this is there's times where I'm so overwhelmed. Can you guys relate to this? Because I used to just be able to multitask. I feel like 10 years ago here's a list of 350 things to do, and I'd be like, okay, I'll have that crap done by noon. I'm not like that anymore. I'm like, I get overwhelmed, right? So it's like, oh, I have young men's tomorrow night. Oh my gosh. And I have all this stuff, and you're like, oh man, I got all this stuff to do. Well, what my brain does now is it says, dude, just leave. Just leave work and go get a drink and a cupcake and go for a drive. You can't even face this stuff. There's so much to do.
When I walk in on you, you're just always watching like Thelma and Louise?
Yeah, it's like,
you're
dude,
hold my hand, Travis.
I'm just leaving. And it's so funny though, like, and you guys will get what I'm saying. But then you're like, fine, I have to just buckle down and do all of this stuff. It's gonna take me like 3 days. And then 2 hours later you're done. You're like, oh, I just had to do it. It's like our brains just lie to us. It's almost, the adversary does want us overwhelmed. It wants us depressed.
That is a good one. I actually just experienced that. Maybe don't need to tell the story, but I kind of want to because I'm proud of my son. My son has a 1992 Lexus SC400, and we bought it for a high school car.
The coupe.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's
Cool.
a sweet car. It's
Yeah,
sweet ride.
cool.
But it has little things go wrong, and it's tough to kind of find the parts for them and stuff. He's working on it tonight, and that's why I was a little bit late. Because I go in there and I hear him like he's just, gosh dang it, one of those type things. And I go in there and he has to take, so he's taken like the fan belt, the fan pulley off because he's got electric fans. So then he has to buy like a Ford serpentine belt so it's pretty complex what he's doing.
You did through all the pulleys and all that.
Yeah, and he has to get a new alternator so it will work, and it won't be stock anymore. It'll be a different thing, and so it's a big deal. And he's telling himself, "This sucks," because this thing isn't working. And I can see him differently. I look at what he's doing, and I'm like, I am so proud of him.
Yeah.
This is so cool. Like that's my perspective. My brain's telling me a totally different story than his brain is telling him. And I think that's just so, you're hitting it on the head.
Yeah.
Our brain is lying to us if it's saying anything other than you're a child of God. You are amazing. Your function down here is invaluable.
Sure.
If it's anything besides that story, you're being lied to. And I'm being lied to all the time. I get there. I think
the
that
guy
stuff.
that told my friend Dave about he's a fraud and a hypocrite. That's his brain. No, you're not. You're a good guy.
Okay.
You're a good guy that accepts callings and tries to do them.
You've changed my mind on that.
And you're addicted to something and you're fighting it. You're trying. And I promise someday, you've been fighting for 30 years. Someday you're going to conquer that, And so it's like whoever that guy is, he probably will never be known publicly, right? Because he's a shame. But yeah, your brain's lying to you. If you're depressed and you're in the church, guys, I've got the solution for you. Forget yourself. I remember the missionaries. This came very naturally for me. I've mentioned my personality before. I'm very duty oriented, so I worked really hard on my mission, and it was out of fear of disappointing my Heavenly Father. Like I didn't give a crap what president thought or anyone else, but I'm like, dude, I got to do this. And but you have these missionaries that it's like they're so down. And they're missing home, and they're missing their mom, and they're missing their girlfriend, and they're depressed, and it's like really hard. And you're like, dude, you've got to forget that stuff and get to work, man.
In fact, maybe expect it.
Yeah. You go work 10 times harder than your work. Well, gosh, we knocked doors for 2 hours yesterday. Well, not for 10. Go until you meet someone and have positive stuff, right? It's like this stuff. The church is not the problem. This high demand religion is not the problem. I made a comment on someone's social media today about it because we get hit with all this stuff now because we have Expo on our hashtag or whatever. And, she talked about how this high demand religion, I said, well, good for you. Thanks for teaching me to embrace human mediocrity. Yeah, you're not against the church. What you're saying is you're against seeking a higher level of existence. Like, you're not against the church. You're about embracing failures and mediocrity. Think about what you're saying. Take the church out of it. Even the motivational speakers who are atheists, some of them, are like, no, you got to have a higher purpose. You've got to, like, so there's no doctrine ever anywhere, guys, if you think the church is making you depressed. There's no doctrine anywhere in the world or any other religion or in any secular movement that's going to tell you, just embrace your mediocrity and not seek for a higher plane of existence.
Be a wild animal.
And then you'll be happy. It's not real. Like, it's not real.
It's a lie.
This girl thinks, this influencer thinks she's happy. Do you know why she thinks she's happy? Because she's got 20,000 followers telling her she is.
Yeah.
And guess what? When the shiznit hits the fan, they're gone. You have nothing now.
Preach.
You have your mediocrity. And I am telling you right now, I will be there for those people. I will be there for them. Like, I am fighting and combating what they're putting out there. I'll be there for them. I'll help them feel the love of the Savior through me, I hope. But other than all your people encouraging you to just, you're enough.
You go, girl.
Yeah, look at you. No,
you go,
man,
Glenn.
they will not be there. They will not be there for you. I have.
Can I read it? Can I read a
please
quick?
Do.
So you remind me of that guy who's fighting the pornography, and everyone who's listening to this that might be listening and have this pornography addiction, or even a version of it, but you keep trying and you keep going. I dedicate this to you. This is one of my favorite quotes, and this is from Teddy Roosevelt, and you guys have probably heard this actually, but it's called "The Man in the Arena."
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's not the critic who counts, and think of the critic maybe even as your brain, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, which is fun to do. Everyone points. Or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. Classic. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, which is what's made me think of this, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause? It doesn't mean wins the cause. Who spends
He's just
himself
in the time.
He spends himself in the worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And so I wanted to, that guy.
The guy addicted to porn for 30 years who hates it and hates his life and hates himself. So what would be better for him than influencers who think the church just quit fighting it, just embrace that porn. Love it, dude. Just forget how it hurts, makes dumb. You. It's so dumb.
Even Teddy Roosevelt knew.
Teddy. And he was a...
Good job, Teddy.
Never mind, I won't bring politics on it. Yeah, so I love it. So
Glenn almost got triggered into it.
Yeah, I was dead.
You had
Teddy.
to repent. I would have made you repent live on
Teddy,
the camera.
Did I repent? Jacob chapter 2. I wanted to talk about this. I read this scripture, and today we're going to talk a little scripture. My beloved brethren, I, Jacob, according to the responsibility which I am under to God, to magnify mine office with soberness, and that I might rid my garments of your sins. I come up into the temple this day that I might declare unto you the word of God. So when you're reading your scriptures, we're going to do the rest of this podcast. We want you to learn from this podcast one way that you can read the scriptures. This is how I like to study my scriptures. I try to take something out of every verse.
Okay.
So verse 2 I highlighted. Here's my note. According to the responsibility which I am under to God. So if you have a piece of paper and a pen and you're reading this verse, it's the first thing that I would ask myself. What is the responsibility which I am under to God? Okay? So you gotta write that down first. Now, if you're an Exmo influencer who thinks this religion's dangerous for you, you have the wonderful, you get to be in a wonderful place where you have no responsibility to God or to yourself or to anybody. You know,
If you want.
you whatever you want, right? But
Everything's cool. You want a low demand.
yeah.
Existence.
So if I crave being engaging in homosexual activity, I have no responsibility to God. If and, you know,
Indulge it.
and I always bring up to the LGBTQ, you know, and again, this is very unpopular that I say this. I don't give a crap. They're like, you don't know what it's like to have these physical temptations and not be able to indulge. Really? I know what it's
Yeah.
like.
I mean, I don't know what it's like, but I know other guys
There's
do.
a lot of physical things that I could do with a lot of people, and I don't.
In my mind, I could.
Yeah, in my
Maybe.
mind. Yeah. Trust me, the options are limited every passing year.
They're getting smaller.
At this point, it's mail order stuff. But yeah, it's like, right. I'm telling you, like, really? But what is my, you know,
Let me be clear. You're specifically saying, and it's been a great point in the past, where you do see other women
sure.
and you think they're attractive, and you maybe have some instincts, some urges
Yeah.
that you have to control.
And in my adult life, I will tell you, I think quite a few of those women have bumped into Tony Robbins in an elevator because they get out and they're like, "Shallow Hal, oh Glenn,
Yeah.
I've had some women try to seduce me, and I'm not.
He
I'm
put
not
his
gonna
banana hands on
Yeah,
his women.
Yeah, dude. He
Wow.
puts, yeah, if
Tony
you go
Robbins,
see Shallow
stop it.
Hal, dude. So it's like, yeah, those temptations have been there, and I'm like, okay, there's two things that I could do. One, I could say, what is my responsibility,
Yeah.
which I am under to God? Or two is, well, I was born this way.
That's true. You were born that way.
I wasn't born to be a monogamist. My body, I was born to just indulge.
I mean,
it's what I want.
scientifically, if you study
Sure.
baboons, Glenn, then
Yeah.
we know that you shouldn't be monogamous.
So guys, like, should I kill myself? Does the church make me depressed because I can't indulge in what I was born to do? Is that an oppressive religion? Or am I like Jacob where I say, hey, what is my responsibility?
This is a good argument, in my
It's
opinion.
like when I talk to you about chastity, and these women are like, this is a growing movement in Latter-day Saint women. Let's make a short out of this if we can.
Yeah.
Latter-day Saint women are telling their daughters, it's not your job to keep these boys' minds clean. Bullcrap. You got baptized. You decided to be a disciple of Christ. As a disciple of Christ, you bet you took the responsibility upon yourself to help other people become more like Christ. If you know that men are biologically wired by God to look at you when you're half naked, then you are under the responsibility to cover up, or you don't believe in your own Christianity. Very unpopular way to look at things.
Wow.
But
Lululemon will be issuing
Yeah.
a cease and desist on Glenn.
That's
wow.
hilarious. I was about to say, I was like, man, maybe Lululemon's like the worst thing that's happened to, Utah.
besides smartphones,
Hopefully my wife will watch this. She came home today and she was dressed up in a tennis outfit. Looking
Get
freaking
out of
hot.
here.
you're like,
Get
kids, go
outta here."
outside. And then Karen's looking at Travis. No, kids.
No, stay inside.
Here, I'm making you something.
Circle me.
And you're like, you go outside now.
Circle around me. Dove formation. Mighty Ducks. The Flying V.
All right, man. Good stuff. Okay. You keep moving down in this. So identify your responsibility. Okay. Jacob saying, according to the responsibility which I am under in my office. What is our office? Well, of all of you, your office
Father.
is disciple of Christ.
Disciple
you
of
got
Christ.
baptized. Us brethren, we accepted priesthood responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So we're under a higher law. Some of us are high priests.
Could that be roles, do you think, Glenn? Like brother, father, friend?
Sure, for sure, man.
All of those things.
Well, we're in Jacob chapter 2, so the last verse about fathers breaking
Yeah.
the hearts of their families, right?
That's right.
I love this too, verse 5. Hearken ye unto me, and know that by the help of the all-powerful creator of heaven and earth, I can tell you concerning your thoughts, how that ye are beginning to labor in sin, which sin appeareth very abominable unto me, and abominable unto God. Does he know every single one of their thoughts? No, but he knows. Guys, we can look at our culture. We know the thoughts of our society.
It's true.
Oh, yeah.
We know. We are abominable, man. Where have we put our hearts in the state of Utah? let's talk about, Jacob points it out to us like he does to his saints there, right? We got a lot of Latter-day Saint women that are like, well, the garment, sometimes. And we got a lot of them like, well, just go around half naked to Harmons.
I just got to run in, Glenn.
I just got to run in.
Don't run.
And we're just slowly chipping away, right? And I'm gonna go get in my SUV that I pay $800 a month on, and that makes me have a second income, and makes me away from the kids.
Want to hear a story?
And we go to these 5,000 square foot homes.
My daughter just did a loan for somebody that the husband and wife were there, and she wanted a Toyota 4Runner so bad. He says, "Honey, we can't afford this unless you get a job." And she says, "Okay, I'll get a job." So as they left, she went and got a job and came back and bought the 4Runner.
Yeah,
that to me was like
controversial. People are going to hate this, but don't pick a 4Runner over your child, please. I was a latchkey kid, and I think I said it in one of the episodes. My wife and I, before we got married, by the way, I was almost married to 2 other women that I was dated before I got engaged to Ann, and it broke because of this. What do you want to do with your life? Big career goals, both of them big career dreams. Well, as soon as my wife said, I want to be a mother, I was like, dude,
Done.
Game, set, match. Because when you're the white kid in LA that every time you get beat up on the way home from school because you're the white kid, everyone's like, you don't know what racism is. Try being the only cracker for 6 blocks. I know exactly what racism is,
and
dude.
it's okay to be racist against
and
you.
You can't outrun them.
No.
Sure as heck can't jump over a fence that they can't jump over.
Yeah.
So you just get the shiz beat out of you.
You're
all right,
just lay down.
So, man, how cool would it have been to get home and my mom's there?
I will say this too: the Mexican people of Mexican descent, they hit puberty earlier. And I'm a big guy, and I'm much bigger than these guys are now. But in like 5th grade, they were big.
They had freaking beards.
Beards and mustache.
You're like, oh, Guillermo, do you smoke?
Yeah.
You're in 4th grade.
I remember I got off the bus one time. I was in kindergarten, and there was this big Mexican kid, and he was probably 4th grader, so he's super old. I was like a
Very
kindergartner.
intelligent.
And he just he first of all enticed me to get off at the wrong stop, and I'm a kindergartner.
This is why.
And then he took me next to this building, and he had cowboy boots on. He just kicked me in the balls, and I crumpled in the ground. And then he ran back and knocked on the bus window, and the bus driver lets him on. And I was just in the middle of town, a kindergartner at the wrong bus stop, and just got kicked in the balls.
Oh my gosh, dude.
I don't know if it was racism, but it felt bad.
But I understand.
But I understand if it was.
Chris Rock. But I understand. I ain't saying he should have killed her.
No.
But I understand.
But I understand. All right.
It grieveth my soul and causes me to shrink with shame before the presence of my Maker, that I must testify unto you concerning the wickedness of your hearts. Okay, it's talking about the wickedness of people's hearts, okay? Think about, do we have wickedness in our hearts? I do.
100%.
I do. I have wickedness in my heart sometimes, right?
I knew you did. I judged you for it.
And also it grieveth me that I must use such boldness of speech concerning you.
I
want more boldness of speech.
Yes, but that was finishing me. I used to kind of skip over that part, but I think he means it. Like he's at such a level.
Yeah, it's sad.
That he wants to be calm and peaceful, but it won't work. So he has to elevate it up. You know, I've thought of that one before. It's interesting. But he really is sad that he has to yell at people.
But listen to what he's saying here. Think about where we are spiritually and think of Jacob.
Okay.
It grieveth him that he must use so much boldness of speech before your wives and your children. Meaning, the stuff he has to tell them they're doing wrong to a chaste and pure heart is offensive.
Yeah.
Yet their wives and kids have to hear this bad stuff.
I remember on my mission president said, "Sisters, will you leave the chapel?"
Oh boy.
And there was a few things that our mission president had to just review with us. Let's say,
Yeah.
that he
President already did it
like
once.
this, he told his wife, take the sisters into the relief study room, and we're gonna have a little chat.
Tell these elders to quit playing whack-a-mole.
Yep. It's like, all right, boys, it's enough. And I was like, wow, I did not anticipate. It was like my first meeting. I was fresh.
I'm not gonna lie, I was so naive about that.
Yeah.
I didn't think anybody would do that on the mission. I'm
No,
like,
me neither.
you're a disciple of Christ. I couldn't believe that our president talked about that so much. I'm like, who's doing that? Like on the mission, you know?
Yeah. I've since found out it's quite prevalent.
Not to get too gross for people, but I thought it was hilarious on the mission. Why am I bringing this up on a podcast? Whatever. We're real.
We are real.
We are real.
Dude.
I thought it was so cool to be such a pure saint at that age that your nocturnal emissions are you're on a motorcycle. It's like you're not even having. I don't get me wrong. You had some bad dreams, but it's like you have to do that if you're not. And it's like, and you wake up like, what? What the heck was that?
I remember I'm in the MTC, dude. I remember in the MTC, and we had a guy who had been inactive for 5 years, a Canadian. That's why I love Canada still, even with all the tariff wars.
Hey, Noah's in Canada.
And Fetch, what was his name? Oh my gosh. Anyway, it doesn't matter because it was a long time ago. But I remember he's like, Elder, I need to talk to my mission president. You know, they had them in the MTC, and I'm like, what happened? He's like, I had a wet dream. And I'm like, yeah, dude.
Yeah, that's legal.
You were literally like sleeping with women like a few years ago.
And now you're LDS.
And now you are locked in.
Tell me I mean, we're talking about something gross, but I'm sorry, dude. I think that is so cool that you've got the age where everyone's just out sleeping around being an idiot. You got these LDS kids.
They're locked in.
They're so spiritually locked in that their biological need to do that disgusting thing is happening because they're in a fast car in their dream or on a motorcycle.
Is it fast enough
I will
that we
say,
can fly
dude,
away?
I do believe that one of the ways I was able to maintain my chastity until I got married, and it was hard.
You just
after
rode a lot of motorcycles.
I do love a motorcycle ride, but yeah, I think it's. Oh my God. I think it's. Yeah, you just derailed me now. That's so funny.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. Like it was that
one of the ways you kept your chastity was you would do
motorcycle rides. No.
It's over.
Yeah, it's like yeah. So now I'm 50. Now I'm 50. I just take Viagra and ride the motorcycle.
Yeah, that's all you need to do.
Okay.
Hello, little lady.
Okay, anyway, Jacob's talking here. This is the craziest scripture study these people have ever been involved with.
This is right in line. So I want to put a little perspective on this. So Glenn and I have been meeting at Denny's for how long now? 20 years?
Yeah. T-bone steak and eggs.
T-bone steak and eggs for Glenn. I am kind of a random.
Yeah, you do something different every time.
But one thing that's consistent is that we will have deeply spiritual conversations interspersed with the most. I mean, sometimes I feel like I have to go to like a Catholic church to just do like confessional just to get some. Anyway, all right.
So he agreed with him to talk about this stuff before their wives and children, many of whose feelings are exceedingly tender and chaste and delicate before God, which thing is pleasing unto God. So, we want to get to this point where even our feelings, right? My spiritual goal is to get to the point where some of the things that are inappropriate in this world that make me laugh. I mean, that's my like-mindedness.
Maybe what we just laughed about.
My like-mindedness and loud laughter is like, I don't know if in this life I'm ever going to be able to overcome this, but you want to get to the point where like spiritually your feelings are so tender and chaste and pure that these things are offensive, right? So he's talking to these men, and then it's like, okay, what are the things he's saying are wicked if you keep going forward? He's talking about telling them the truth and plainness, all these things. First one he mentions, and now, my brethren, this is the word which I declare unto you, that many of you have begun to search for gold and for silver and for all manner of precious ores, in the which this land, which is a land of promise unto you and to your seed, doth abound most plentifully. Are we as Latter-day Saints guilty of that? Yeah, man. Big time. Seeking after the things of this world. I know, I'm telling you, I'm sharing what I call a testimony that, first off, our American culture, we have so much plenty that we don't even understand what it means to suffer, right? When I hear these people talk about politics, tax the rich, we have to help the poor. And I'm sitting there going, there's no poor. We don't have poor. You have poor because they're addicted to drugs, they need medical treatment. But dude, the poor people where I have been, and I've been around the block, man, in LA, Atlanta, Cleveland, Ohio, the projects, I've been to all these different areas. They all have indoor plumbing, dude. The fridge has food in it. It's chock full of preservatives, and it's but
no, it's a different level, right?
But so what do we look at as comfort and what we have to do to be a good provider or a good man is a lie. Remember we talked about 45 minutes ago, your brain lying to you? You men that think you're under pressure to get the new Forerunner for the wife, or that every kid needs their own bedroom, or that you've got to have a playroom or a theater room or anything to be a good dad, your brain is lying to you. Like I'm telling you, I speak fluent Spanish and I do a lot of business with Latinos. And it's amazing to me, these Mexicans
they probably think we're so crazy, dude.
They think we're so dumb. They come in with their cash.
Yeah.
$15,000 car.
Yeah.
Here you go. I have cash. I saved it up working at Del Taco.
Dude, listen to this.
Meanwhile, all these white people are out there. We got to help the people that work at Del Taco. Dude, they're coming in paying cash for their car because they live in an apartment that's got 2 bunk beds in one of the bedrooms. They think they've hit the freaking jackpot.
My buddy, Daniel knows him. I have a Mexican buddy. And he just texted me during this podcast. He's like, you'll never believe it. I started telling people that I could fix their Tesla. Last month, I made $4,300 on the side. I'm going to start doing it more often. I think I can get it up to $16,000 a month.
Give me that guy's number.
And I'm just like,
and
he does. He's kind of Americanized, Josh Lucero.
Yeah.
He's kind of Americanized, but he still kind of looks at us like,
because he's not going to go make $16 a month and then go buy a $950,000 house and 3 new cars and a boat.
He'll just buy a gold-handled gun.
I mean, one of my sales guys, very active. A guy in his neighborhood that he knows declared bankruptcy 6 years ago, just bought a new $200,000 boat. I'm like, well, he's going to do it again. But that guy has to carry that burden. These are spiritual.
Yeah.
Jacob's saying, guys, this is a burden to you.
It's hard for your wife to have that those tender feelings when it's like rat race and I'm under pressure and leave me alone. I am at work. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you asking me to help with the house? I just worked all day.
Yeah.
To provide this for all those things that have run through my mind. I will say I have a friend who said that his wife came to him and said, you know what? If you could just get a job that was paid $150,000 a year, we could live pretty well.
That's all.
And I'm like, and I was thinking about it.
No pressure, sweetie.
Yeah, that's true. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. If you could just go make $100,000 a month. We'd be really good.
Yeah.
Thanks, dear.
Yeah.
Think about this. So, what I want to take your mind to, this is really what I envision the Extra Mo.
I'm going to stay out of your way for the rest of this one.
No, don't.
You close
this
it
is
up.
fun. The Extra Mo show, this is what I want it to be. I want you to start thinking about this spiritual stuff in this way. The guy that told my friend he's been addicted to pornography and therefore he's a hypocrite and a fraud. The first thing Jacob brings up in this chapter isn't chastity, it's riches. How many of us, if we looked at sin this way, would look at ourselves as frauds and hypocrites because of our pursuit of riches and more? How many of us have neglected opportunities to be Christ-like? I'm raising my hand here. I have.
Yeah.
I told you I was making big money once and was like, I can't miss this Wednesday nights. And it's the only time I've ever said I can't do my calling. Shame on me. I've repented. It would never happen again. I felt guilt immediately, and the Lord kept blessing me financially. I was fine, right? But I would have been fine doing my freaking calling Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
But I prioritized this job because
you even told me that your extreme view is that, like, if the Lord needed me to spend 5 days a week serving the Lord, he would provide for me in 2 days. And if he needed me 6 days a week, then I would work 1 day a week.
I go as far as to say if a man who wasn't even it wasn't even an inspired calling to that leadership position, we were talking about being the Lord's man,
we talked
and
about
if
that last
that
time.
man even promised me in the name of the Lord without even him being inspired, that Glenn, if you'd work 4 days a week just helping the old people in our ward and 1 day a week at your job, I told you that my testimony is the Lord would provide a way.
Well, it's attached to your obedience. It's not attached to his command.
It has nothing to do with him. He's the Lord's man on accident, but he's still the Lord's man, right? But yes, I do believe that. And it's hard to believe, but I believe it. And guys,
It's hard for me to wrap my head around because I obviously have that would be a tough one for me. I think I believe it for other people, but then executing it on myself would be
a lot of faith.
Watching it happen. I think I told you in Manti, that guy, when we moved to Manti, we had a very overwhelming spiritual experience that took us to Manti. Someday I'll talk about that on here, but it ended up being like a mini mission for me and my family. We actually helped reactivate quite a few people.
That was a wild time.
It was quite an amazing thing.
You're living with this weird stereo guy in an apartment.
To be a member of a bishopric. So it was the first counselor in stake presidency calls me in. It says, Brother Curtis, I sense that you are nervous. Is it about the calling? And I'm like, no. And he says, well, what's the matter? And I just said, I don't know what the heck I'm doing out here and how I'm going to provide for my family.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, what brought you out here? And I told him my experience. And just like the bishop in Orem, when I told him we were moving to Manti, I said, don't tell that experience to people. So I won't.
He said, don't say it.
Yeah, he said, you shouldn't be telling. He said, you shouldn't tell other people this. They won't understand.
They won't believe it.
And
pearls before swine.
And the stake guy says, don't tell what happened, what brought you out here. But that's what brought me out here. So this is the first guy.
Oh, well, what?
He had the same experience.
No way.
Yes. So he tells me.
That's crazy.
He tells me, I came out here, no way to provide for my family, had no idea what to do. And he says, am I a stake president?
Now I run moonshine.
It told us to.
Sorry.
It's awesome. He told me, if you'll double your fast offerings, I promise you that you won't have to worry about money. And
that goes against one of my core beliefs.
Right. So anyway,
but I believe in miracles.
Well, hold on. Maybe the guy, it goes with what we're saying. That's why I'm telling the story.
Okay.
Maybe the guy was talking out of his butt, but he still had the authority of a leadership, and he told his brother that. Well, guys, that brother is the most successful businessman in Sanpete County. He's wealthy. Okay? I went home and told my wife, and we've always paid a pretty generous fast offering. Honey, I was just promised that if we double our fast offering, we'll be okay. We need to do it because I don't know what the heck we're going to do. I won't tell how or whatever, but I will say that 3 months later, I got a check in the mail for $100,000.
See, I hate this story.
That we had no idea was coming. So, and I'm telling you, that's
almost like that gospel of wealth or whatever, and I struggle with it. I believe you, but I struggle with that.
Well, I'm just telling you, it's a true story, and that's on top of what we made at our job. So,
jeez.
Have I ever gone back on my fast offering? No.
Yeah.
Right? And guys, I'm not telling you on the Extra Mo show, go double your fast offering and you'll get a check. What I'm telling you is when a leader makes you a promise in the name of the Lord and gives you a calling, if you do it and prioritize it over these things that Jacob's talking about, you will be blessed. Okay.
I have so much doubt in my heart, and I'm just admitting it, just so that I'm sure other people will feel the same. I'm not saying
I still do.
Yeah.
And I lived it, and I still do.
I do think that it is interesting, and it's a great concept that obedience is the principle, right? And I think I look at it like I coach businesses, and a lot of them share one common thing. And do you know what that is? They don't think they could fail, and that's why they started. And I wonder if some of it is. Sure. I wonder if some of it is that where it's like, do this thing, and this thing will happen, and that's enough for them to push into action instead of doing nothing. And that action begets whatever, the butterfly effect. You know, I'm not just dismissing it or anything like that, but I'm just saying faith is a powerful tool. It promotes action, and action is the only way you're going to change your life. financially, spiritually. You're addicted to pornography. You have to change your behaviors.
You have to, no matter how high demand it seems.
Yeah.
If you want to find happiness, elevate your thinking. King Follett Discourse, Joseph Smith. Like, man, I wish you guys could see, what I can see. Just elevate your thinking. He says, you obtain many riches, and because some of you have obtained more abundantly than that of your brethren, you're lifted up in the pride of your heart and wear stiff necks and eye ads because of the costliness of your apparel, and persecute your brethren because you suppose that you're better than them. Is this in our culture? Oh, that you would listen unto the word of his commandments, and let not this pride of your hearts destroy your souls. Guys, this is all before he talks about chastity. We started talking about porn. He's saying money, pride. Let me tell you this. If your heart is set on the things of the world and you're trying to overcome pornography, you won't. Like, these sins all go hand in hand. Did I ever tell you, like, the talk my mission president gave me?
The layered strength of it.
Sure. But my mission president calls me and he looks at me and he just laughs. And he goes, he's like, you were a good missionary, but you probably had more fun than you should have, type thing. And I'm like, totally.
Totally, yeah.
He's like, you didn't obey all the rules. I know.
Yeah.
But I worked hard. He says, Elder Curtis, I'm going to warn you about the 3 B's.
Okay.
And not every missionary gets this.
I like it when there's little letters that can help you remember
get
stuff.
The 3 B's talk.
Right.
And I'm like, all right. Booze, broads, and bucks. That was the end of the talk.
I was thinking 4 B's.
Hey.
Boobs.
Yeah. Well, it's broads.
Yeah, no, but
it's in there.
I think they should get their own category.
The double
Glenn.
B's.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, it's the point is, he knew me.
Yeah.
And those all 3 have been my, thing.
I
Right?
like
Those
it.
are, but so Jacob's telling you, before you seek for riches, seek for the kingdom, and after you've obtained a hope in Christ, you shall obtain the riches. And for those of you like, but I'm not rich, you're full of it. Your brain's lying to you. You're rich. I don't know anyone in my ward or stake or anyone that's not rich. You're not rich compared to that guy, but you're way rich compared to 90% of the world. And you
Right.
need to be grateful, right? And then you'll see more abundance, right? He talks about, and then you go on to verse 23. He skips that. This people begin to wax in iniquity. They understand not the scriptures, for they seek to excuse themselves. Again, we talked about this already today. You don't know what it's like. I was born this way. I said, do I use that excuse to commit heterosexual sin? Jacob, they seek to excuse themselves in committing whoredoms because of the things which were written concerning David and Solomon, blah, blah, blah. Right? So then he starts talking about delights. I, the Lord, delight in the chastity of women. And whoredoms are an abomination before me, thus saith the Lord of hosts. Well, people read that and they're thinking, whoredoms? Well, we're not committing whoredoms. No, he didn't just say he delights in not committing whoredoms. He delights in the chastity of women. So he doesn't want his sons to look at you with lust. He wants your soul to be so delicate and chaste. He's talking... Guys, I talked about our culture. Where are we at? We are these people, dude.
Yeah.
We are these people that Jacob is talking to. We're excusing everything. Now, why the celebration from all these women that there's a sleeveless garment? Why do you care so badly? We got Muslim women that'll cover themselves up with a black tent and walk around in the desert for their faith. And our LDS saints are like, that extra 3 inches there is making me too hot. I better walk around in my bra and my Lululemon pants. Dude, are we these people?
Dude, I had a cool experience. I hope it comes. I got to share it because it's too kind of funny. So I'm in the temple on Saturday, and a friend comes walking down the stairs at the temple that I haven't seen for a while. And I'm like, hey, this is a woman, and me and Karen both know her, so we say hi and whatnot. And we worked out together for many years. And so she's in her workout clothes. And I remember thinking, she's, at the temple, they're just in a beautiful dress. And you know what I mean?
Look like
that's
angels.
kind of interesting. She has clothes on,
Yeah.
And then like the very next day I see her at a gas station. And then she just got done with this workout, and she's in her workout clothes again. And I'm just like, this is kind of an interesting juxtaposition.
That's a contrast.
Yeah. I mean, no big.
No, don't. The hate that people will have in their hearts from hearing us talk about plain and precious truths. They're too bold. Sorry.
I also don't judge them.
No, I don't.
I also sometimes enjoy it.
I look at them more than I should, right? Because the wickedness and abominations of their husbands. We'll skip on down to the last verse.
Yeah, let's get it.
Behold, you have done greater iniquities than the Lamanites our brethren. You have broken the hearts of your tender wives and lost the confidence of your children because of your bad examples before them, and the sobbings of their hearts ascend up to God against you. And because of the strictness of the word of God, which cometh down against you, many hearts died, pierced with deep wounds. That sounds high demand to me, and I'm okay with that. Like we talked about already, Dan just was over there going, "Yep, dude, I've been less active and not giving a crap about the high demands. I've been in a faith crisis where I didn't believe in the high demands, both miserable times in my life. Even the men in my life and women that are not religious in any way, shape, or form, they do not grovel in mediocrity. It's all about self-improvement, becoming a better person, So to say that religion is too high demand, guys, success in winning at this life is high demand, whether you have a religion that does it or not. And we will answer. I had a compliment about our parenting this weekend. Somebody called me with some advice about parenting, and they're like, gosh, you're, not toot my own horn, but I did a pretty good job raising my kids. How'd you do it? I was asked, how'd you do it? And I said, dude, because I didn't look at my kids as my friends. I looked at them as my calling. In other words, I'm not going to answer to my kids for how I was a dad. And honestly, this sounds harsh because I do care, but I don't care if they think I was a good dad. I have to answer to my God. He called me to raise these children, right? And I'm going to answer to him for how I did it. And brethren, whether it's a porn addiction or caring too much about how much money you make or wanting a forerunner so your wife's not there after your kid gets beat up on the way home from school or whatever it is, all the myriad of ways. We just talked about riches and chastity. There's a million ways where we fail. The cries of those souls of our kids that want to be pushed and want to be uplifted and taught and parented and raised are crying up to our Heavenly Father against us. And we need to be our best selves. We need to work on being our best selves. And trying to find excuses for not doing it, it's not going to cut it. So that's
I love it.
That's where I want to finish up.
I love it, Glenn. I love this. We want to touch as many people as we can. We want to, whether it's just the 100 that we currently are getting, regularly or more, but it's really up to you. So like the video, comment on the video, agree or disagree, share the video. We want to help people that are in a faith crisis to come closer to Christ. Even if you're not in a faith crisis, something I'm getting from this is I'm personally drawing strength from us meeting weekly to kind of hash this stuff out. And so even in your own groups, figure out ways to bring yourself closer to Christ. And we'll see you guys next time.